Good day, everyone. I'm Dr. Vince Edward Araneta, the training officer of the Department of Family and Community Medicine. And I have been with Soto since my residency training in 2013 and up to now, in which I am the consultant already.
Can you share a bit of your COVID-19 journey?
So actually, when the pandemic started, the department has already been in the forefront in the fight against this virus. We had adjustments or even the duties were rearranged, and even us consultants had to go on 24 hours duty together with the residents. So this is to address the need of manpower during the pandemic. Until such time that the department was assigned to a treatment facility outside of the hospital to take care of COVID patients. So the point here is that we have been taking care of COVID patients from the very start. And along with that is also the anxiety, the fear of getting the virus, not only for myself, but also the family my family could be affected. And there came a point that when it's my duty week, I would not go home to my family just to keep them safe from the virus. And actually for the whole of 2020, I was not infected with the virus. I thought, because I had that strong faith in my prayer that God will really keep me safe and my family from the virus. So I had even swab twice for the year of 2020, and it came negative. Until at the early part of 2021, and it's even ironic that I didn't get the virus during the tour of my duties, but to a place that I least expected.
How did this virus or this pandemic affected you and the rest of your family?
So actually, it was my father who had the symptoms, who had the first symptoms of COVID. He had the fever and cough, and after that, my mother was exposed, my brother and my sister, and even myself, I was exposed. So I also contracted the virus, and in turn, I also exposed my own family, my wife, and my two daughters. So my 1 year and 10 months daughter, and even my 2-month-old daughter. And as a result of that, my mother was also admitted here in this institution because of the severe COVID. And along with that, my brother was isolated in our home in Bugu, and my sister was also admitted, but she was the one who accompanied my mother when she was referred here in Soto. And it was hard. The virus struck us in a very unexpected way, and it was very hard during that time for my family, and a lot of people were affected. So even my own family here in Cebu City, as I also exposed them, and my parents-in-law were also there in my house here in Cebu City, and they're also at risk during that time. So even my sister-in-law, because of that. But when we were tested for COVID, I was positive. My whole family, Araneta family, were positive. My wife was even positive, and even my 1 year and 10-month-old daughter was not spared from the virus. So I had to deal with a big challenge in my life during that time, and it's not that it's yourself only that you have to think of, because the virus could affect anyone, not only the family but even the vulnerable and the elderly and those that you interact with.
Can you take us through the event when your parents lost their battle against COVID-19?
As I have mentioned, it was my father who had the COVID symptoms first. And actually he got well after a few days. But there came a time when he had a decrease in sensorium. And because of that, we immediately brought him to this institution here in Soto. And when I saw him, also, he had unstable condition. So until the day, actually it was around 3 days, in which he lost his battle from COVID. But actually my father had many comorbidities. He had hypertension, diabetes, polycythemia vera, which made him very vulnerable to the virus. And I just received the bad news after 3 days of battling the virus, and even with the other conditions, because COVID triggered his other conditions, which caused him to have diabetic ketoacidosis, stroke, even aside from the high-risk pneumonia. And since my mother was also exposed, I advised my sister to let them be tested for the virus, and sure enough, they also tested positive. But my mother had already severe symptoms a few days after that she was tested. So I also advised them to come here in Soto, so that my mother would be admitted. And she also had severe manifestations. But unlike my father, my mother was only hypertensive. But I know that she's already 74 years old. She's already high risk for succumbing to the disease. And actually, I thought that my mother would survive this virus, because she stayed in the hospital for 3 weeks. There were moments that her condition improved, but sadly, after 3 weeks, she died because of COVID. But actually, I requested even to the top management if I could see my mother before her demise. So actually, at least I was able to see her before she died from COVID.
With the loss of your parents, was there a time that you doubted or questioned God, His reasons, His purposes? If yes, how did it affect your faith in Him?
So actually, when all of those happened, I asked God, why? Why is this happening? Because from one bad news to another bad news to another bad news, it was too much to bear. I really had difficulty in dealing with what is happening to me during that time. And it was hard, it was painful. It was hard to lose my father, but it was even harder to lose both parents. My father actually had several admissions, or he has already went to the hospital several times because of his condition. He survived every admission. He even experienced myocardial infarction or heart attack. He even underwent last 2020 a high-risk operation because of acute cholecystitis. And that happened even after he was admitted in the ICU for heart attack. And I did not really expect the suddenness and even the short days, or even the 3-day span of my father succumbing to the disease, because he had history of long admissions. So, and not only that, my mother and even my whole family was affected. And I asked God, what's your purpose for doing this to me, God? Although I asked him, but actually, um, my faith did not waver. I just leaned to him for strength. Because if it's on my own, I will not be able to bear it. Because a human strength or the human wisdom or intelligence is just limited. We could not really fathom what God is doing. Because He is doing maybe for a greater purpose. And there are also the positive side of what He's doing, because my father and mother already with Him. And they're in a place where they won't experience any problem or any stressor. And I just leaned to God because with God all things are possible. He could heal your wounds, He could heal your pain, He could even pick you up when you're broken to pieces.
During your quarantine isolation days, what are some of the reflections or realizations you have to grasp in your moments of doubt and uncertainties? How did you cope up or manage with it or not?
Although I asked God as to why is this happening, actually when I was admitted here in Soto for my isolation, I was reminded of the story of Job. That story is in the Old Testament. And actually Job was very faithful to God. He was righteous and he even prayed for his sons whenever they would sin. One day, I would just like to share this story a little bit. One day Satan asked God that Job, can he do something to Job, because he's just faithful because he was blessing Job. What if he would take away everything from him? So God allowed Satan to do those things, but in one condition, that he would not kill Job. True enough, in a span of one day, Job received a series of bad news. He lost his 10 children. So his children died, his servants, he lost his livestock and all his possessions. He was even afflicted with a disease. And his wife was even telling him to curse God already. But amidst those things that happened to him, he stayed faithful. He still praised God. And what happened to him is a far cry from what happened to me. And I just realized that if Job can still remain faithful to God amidst those the things that happened to him, then why can't I? And I know that God will always be there for me and my family. Even though He had this promise that we will be protected from the virus, but I know He will not let anything bad happen to me and my own family. And I was even reminded in Jeremiah 29:11, it says there that, for I know I have plans for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. So I just hold on to that promise. Because sometimes whenever we pray, we ask God for strength. We ask God that to make us stronger. We will not be stronger unless we undergo a season of hardship. That's the one thing that's advantage is you will learn when you try to stand up and survive that challenge. You will become a better person. Actually, God will allow you to undergo a season of breaking so that you'll be able to achieve your breakthrough. So I just focused on the positive things. I focused on my family, my wife was there to always support me, and my daughters, because I still have, and even to the things that I could still do for the people. For those people who are experiencing the same things, or for those people who are having a lot of problems or great challenges, or for those who are thinking that the situation is too overwhelming, we cannot really question God. We cannot blame God. You just have to learn to trust in Him. This verse I will share is very familiar to many people. It says in John 3:16 that for God so loved the world that He gave His one and only Son, and whoever believes in Him shall not perish but have eternal life. If God can sacrifice His Son, or if Jesus can sacrifice Himself for us, how much more when we are in a situation that we are facing a great challenge. So that's already a great sacrifice, what Jesus did, what God did. And that shows how much He loves us. You cannot really say that God is abandoning you or God is not hearing your prayers. God will always be there because He has that great love for us. And that love is even the highest form of love. And that's even the essence during the Holy Week, so that we can remember the sacrifice of Jesus. He demonstrated that great love, actually the greatest love. That's agape, the highest form of love. So even if your own family or your friends or your acquaintance or other people would hurt you, God will never really do that because His love is so great for us. So when you are facing something that is impossible, when you are facing a great deal of problem, just remember God. That love will sustain you. That love will strengthen you. That love will inspire you. And it will help you go through that season of hurt, that season of pain. And yes, it's okay to grieve when you have that loss. It's okay to be sad, but don't dwell on that despair. Don't be immersed on that depression. You can express your sadness, but just call on to God to give you and give you that strength and sustain you. Because nothing is really impossible with Him. So a reminder to those who are in a difficult situation. If you say that God forgot you, then you really forgot who God is.